My name is Monique Bental, and I was born in Marseille, France, many years ago. And life was very comfortable for many, many years. And I went to school, of course. I went on a girls' school. And I was not a great student in those days. I just was a big clown. I like attention. So I needed to be silly, so then I would get attention, and then I would get attention at home, and I would go back then. So that was not fun. But I learned languages. I was very interested in languages. Learned Latin at the time, English. We also had, in those days, and I don't know now, but in those days, French schools were really the best. I think it had changed a lot. But so I was really inclined to learn English and Latin, of course. And eventually, I think maybe that's why it was so easy for me to learn Hebrew when I was in Israel. And before the war, which was, I don't know why, but my father thought that, well, if I wanted to learn languages, then I should learn German. So that was before the war. So I said, okay. So it was a interesting language, but of course I never spoke that language. That was taboo for me. I wouldn't want anything to do, and if I would hear the language, I felt very, very, upset, because I would see right away somebody in uniform, and so I certainly didn't want to learn German. We had a maid, and she was the cook, and she made all the French dishes. But my mother would cook once a week, maybe, when the maid was off, and that was about it. So and my father was very busy. He, as I said, he had a business of ship chandler. And he had a big store where he had all kinds of things for the ship. And he had aquariums, a lot of aquariums, big ones. I like that. I like that too. And then he would take me to the opera, because my mother wouldn't like opera. So he would take me to the opera. That's why I like opera very much. And we would go fishing together. In 1942, my father wasn't very comfortable anymore. He was well known. He was a ship chandler. He was taking care of ships and furnishing whatever was necessary. So he was doing pretty well, and until he started getting worried that a lot of people knew him and knew that he was Jewish, and he was concerned about his family. So he decided about that time, 1942, to live in a small village, and he thought that he would be, and all of us, of course, safe there, which was not really the case. We left Marseille, and my mother, my younger sister, that was at the time about 2 years old, and myself, I was about 12. When we got there and we stayed there, we had a very good time. We rode bicycles, and later on we were not so safe anymore. We had to give, not me, but my father had to give the list of our family. Of course, they were Jewish. It was all of us. And we learned that he had a list of all the Jewish people that were trying to live in this village and be safe. So my father was worried about that. So later on, much later on, a few months later, I slept in my parents' room, and with my little sister there too. And my grandmother had her own room. My grandmother was at the time, I think, 70 years old, and she had her own room. So in the morning, about 7:30 in the morning, we heard a big bang at the door, and so my father went to open, and we had four German soldiers with machine guns that came in and wanted to talk to my father, of course. I didn't know at the time that my father knew German. The only thing I know about that is that he was in the army in the First World War, and maybe that's why he learned German, but he never told me, so I had no idea, and I still don't know today. So he was speaking to them, and after a little while, I saw him on his knees, and I assumed, because I couldn't understand the language, that he was begging them to leave us behind. And I didn't know if they knew about my grandmother, but they probably did also. So he asked that they would leave us behind. And he told them that we had a big trunk in the room, which they saw and they could have taken if they wanted to. And that we had all our valuables there, because at the time you couldn't leave as a Jew. You couldn't have anything in the banks anyway. It wasn't safe to have anything there. So we had all our valuable. Of course, I didn't know what they were. I was 12 or 13 then, and I had no idea. I just knew that we had valuable. My mother, probably jewelry, money. We couldn't have money anyplace else. So he told them, that's what I assumed, that he would give them everything we had if they would leave the children behind. And so I guess they agreed, because we're still here. And my father said, we have a little bit of money that I was able to take away from the trunk. You have to take it and bring it to your grandmother, because that's all is left, and you'll have nothing else. So I said, that they were still in the room. I was very scared. I said, I can't do it. He said, you have to do it. You have no choice, because that's all you'll have. So in the end, I saw the money. I put all kind of towels on top of it, and I took the bunch, and they didn't say anything. I guess they were just happy with what was in the trunk, I suppose. And then I brought it to my grandmother in a room, and I explained to her what was going on. And later on, they took my parents down, and they sat in a car, and so I sat in front of the car, and I sat on the grass until they took them out, because there were other Jewish people in that village. There was a long list, and so they took everybody, and until everybody was in the cars, then they took my parents as well. And so my grandmother, of course, was very worried and very scared. And because later on we receive, in the hotel, we receive a cable that they were coming to pick up the children. But she didn't know, she didn't understand, and I read the cable myself later on. She didn't understand that it was not the Germans that were taking us back. It was a Jewish organization that knew that the children were left behind, and they would come and pick them up. So I told my grandmother not to worry about it. Everything was okay. Then she decided that we would go for a while on a farm, because she really didn't know where to go from there. Of course, we didn't want to stay in the hotel. And her sister had a maid, and her son was the farmer. So we were accepted there for 1 week. That's all. That was it. And they were very nice to us. They were very nice. They fed us. They kept us for 1 week. And the strange thing that I still don't know what it was about, is that they would, all of them, the family, would walk around us and looking for the horns that we were supposed to have, because Jews were supposed to have horns. Of course, we never knew that, but they believed that, and they were going around us and asking us, where are the horns? I said, I don't know what you're talking about. But anyway, that was just the details. Later on, after the week, my grandmother decided to rent a small house. So we rented a small house in the countryside, no electricity, no water, nothing, but at least a place to stay. And my aunt, her sister, came also with her maid and to stay with her. So we were those two old ladies and my little sister and myself. And I would go into the woods and pick up woods, because there was no kitchen in that house, and my grandmother had to cook in the chimney, so I had to bring the woods, and I would look for the water, of course, for her and take care of what was needed. So we stayed there for a while until one day we were told that the Germans were a few miles away, and that they in another small village, and that they had killed and hanged everybody, all the Jews in that village. So of course we decided that we were going to run away from there, and so I organized a way to get out of that small house, but my aunt was too old, and so she stayed there. And so my grandmother, my little sister, and then, we were going to run away in the fields, which never happened because they never came to our house anyway. We received a letter from my mother, and she was saying that they had taken them to Paris and put them in jail for 1 week. And after that they put them on the train that was probably going to go to a camp. She wasn't sure what was going on, but that's what she said. And she was also what was happening in those years is that people that were taken to concentration camps and were on trains were throwing letters out through the windows or what, and people that were nice enough that were picking them up and mailing those letters. So mostly people that were working on the tracks were picking up those letters and mailing them. And that's the way that we got her letter, where she was saying that where they were and on the way that they were onto a camp. She didn't have many details, and she wanted me to take care of my little sister and make sure that she was well, and my grandmother, and that's mostly what she was worried about. She was also worried that she was afraid that they would come and pick us up, and so she would send this, a note telling us, don't send back any letter, don't say that you're there, don't say anything. I had another sister, actually I haven't talked about yet, but my older sister was already married. She was expecting a baby, and she was not Jewish. I mean, she married a Christian man, and she decided that she would cope the best way she could, and that she would be also Christian and would convert, and all her family would be Christian, because she didn't want anything to happen to what happened to us. Of course, that wouldn't help, because the Germans always knew how to check the grandparents and so on. But that's what she believed. Then we were liberated, and we had to leave and go back to Marseille. It was very difficult in those years. All the bridges had been blown. And even if there were trains, we had to take a barge to go from one town to another. And it was very difficult because I had two old ladies to take care of, my little sister, And it was difficult because we had luggage and we had to find people that were waiting there to take the luggage to the barge, and then from the barge we would go to another train. And it was really very scary because there were even people that were on the steps of the train because everybody wanted to go home, of course. And later on, the Jewish agency was coming from Paris with displaced persons. You know, all the peoples that were out of camps, they were taking them if they were willing to and ready to go to Palestine. That was not Israel yet. And we had the country had a small yacht, not a big ship, but a small yacht that was called the Kedma, and they were putting all these people on the Kedma and sending them to Palestine. And so they asked me if I would like to help, and I said, of course. So they gave me the job to welcome these people when they were arriving on the train from Paris and bring them to the harbor on the Kedma. And I worked for this nice lady from the Jewish agency who wanted me to come to Paris to her and work for her. And so I needed money and to send to my grandmother. And I said, oh, okay, so that's better than what I have right now. So I went to our office and worked there. But I was very young and I wasn't very good as a secretary anyway. But she liked me and she kept me. However, when one time I opened the door of the office and I saw these young people going out of another office back and forth all the time, and I wanted to know what they were doing. And so I went to talk to them, and they said to us, well, we're going to Palestine. And I said, what are you going to do there? Well, we're going to be in the army. So I said, well, I was thinking to myself, my sister decided to become a Christian. I decided I will go to the country, to Palestine. And so I told this nice lady, I said goodbye to her. I told her that I was going to Palestine as well. And they took us back to Marseille because we were trained again to be in the army there for a couple of months. So after the training, we went back on this little ship, the Kedma, and we went to, at that time, it was still in Palestine, but we knew that eventually, very soon, it was going to be called Israel. So we were on that ship, and because the British were still there at the time, occupying Palestine, so they couldn't go to a harbor or any place, so we had to stop by a beach and get off the plane, get off the ship, and we had people that were coming to pick us up in small boats to bring us from the boat to the beach. And they had buses there, and many buses waiting there for us. However, they told us to be, of course, very quiet because of the British, and they didn't, and we couldn't ask what bus we were supposed to go on. So they just told us to go on the buses. Now I took a wrong bus, of course, and I went on the bus of immigrants. So so when everybody was loaded on the buses, we left, and they took me to a camp of immigrants, and I said, "That I'm not supposed to be here," and they wouldn't let me go for 3 days. They needed, I guess, some information that I was really belong in the army. So finally, I got in touch with somebody from the boat, and I told them I need help. This is really what I want. I don't want to stay with the immigrant camp. So they finally released me and took me to a camp that was called Bet Lid, and that start training again. And I was there for a year and a half in the army, and they asked us actually I came with a group from France, a small group of women, and they asked us what we wanted to do, and we all decided that we wanted to be drivers, to learn how to drive. So they said they were not too happy by the beginning because we didn't know a word of Hebrew. And they said, that's going to be hard. You're going to have, lessons in Hebrew. And we said, that's okay. We'll manage. We'll do it. So they sent us to a driving school. And I think that that's why I'm such a great driver, is because I was taught in the army. And all kinds of big cars, small cars, trucks, no trucks, whatever. So I certainly got pretty good at driving anything. And I stayed in the army. And I stayed in the army about, as I said, about a year. And after the year, they asked me, they said, well, would you like to stay in Israel? Because then it was Israel. They said, would you like to stay in Israel? Would you like to go back to France? And I said, well, I would like to try civilian life. So they said, okay, we have an hotel for young ladies after the army, and you can stay there for 3 months, without paying anything. But of course, there's not going to be any money for you. So so I looked in the papers for a job. I said, I need a job. So, and then we had a place to stay, but we had no food. So we decided that they had a cafeteria for the soldiers. We were not soldiers anymore. And we went there and we asked them if we could, get some food there. And they said, well, there was an old man that was keeping the place at night. And he said, well, the only thing you can do if you want to is keep me company, talk to me. We were a little group of girls. And he said, if you talk to me, then all what's left from the cafeteria I'll give you. So that's the way we kept, and we had sandwiches and things like this that were left by the soldiers. And we were able to live in the hotel for a while. And then I found something in a paper that says that in Jerusalem they wanted a driver of a dental ambulance. Well, I didn't know what a dental ambulance really was doing, but anyway, so I went to meet the people. I met the doctor who was in charge, and they took me all around to see if I could drive that tremendous ambulance, because it had this chair inside, and it has a doctor, of course, a dentist, and then there's my chair as a driver. And after that, I decided that maybe I should be a dentist too. So I decided I was going to go back to France and go to study, because my studies had been interrupted anyway. I was far from being a dentist. I had a lot of studies to do. So I went back, and originally from departing from France, I didn't have a passport. I was coming with a laissez-passer. And on the way back, France received me again with a laissez-passer, because I didn't have any passport anyway. So I went back to France, and I went to school. I went to work, and I went to work, of course. And then I went back to school.